Shalom, family. Good to see you all. I hope you're doing well. Well, we're going to talk about Elon and Donald Trump. And I don't know, I see some discrepancies here. I'm not 100% convinced that these men dislike each other. And I'll show you why. Now, I know a few days ago, Elon was back out there on X writing some disparaging things about Donald Trump. But like I said, let me just show y'all something. And it's a little murky, but it's Donald Trump and Elon at Charlie Kirk's funeral. Let me show you this picture. Okay. So Elon and Donald Trump were at the memorial, whatever funeral service they had for Charlie Kirk. And as you can see, they're shaking hands. And when you watch the clipping of them, they just facing each other, just gabbing back and forth. And I'm thinking to myself, is this feud is just something staged to make you believe these two billionaires don't like each other? Or, I don't know. Are they performing? Because they seem very chummy at Charlie Kirk's funeral. They were facing each other, talking, smiling, shaking hands. And I was like, well, that don't look like these folks are enemies. So are they just playing this up for the media? I'm not sure. But not long after this, Elon was back on X dragging Donald Trump. And I was like, I don't know if I can take after looking at this, you can actually see the video of it, of them just talking and gabbing and laughing and shaking hands and sitting right next to each other. Most people, if you got an enemy, you ain't sitting next to no damn enemy, whether it's at a funeral or anywhere. You're not going to sit next to somebody that you consider an enemy. These people, they sat right next to each other. So now I'm starting to think it's not what we're seeing on the surface. I'm starting to think their feud is a bunch of BS. I'm just saying. So anyway, and we know Charlie Kirk's funeral was really not that long ago. So let me just remove this. So one thing that Elon said, if it wasn't for him, Donald Trump would never have been elected as president again. So a lot of people that raised a red flag. So did Donald Trump cheat to get in office? Or did they do something shady with the numbers? I mean, you got to think about this. These folks are billionaires. They got enough money to pay everybody off to give that election to Donald Trump, even if he didn't legitimately win. If they shell out enough money, then people are not going to talk. So I'm going to play some videos for you. Now, one is an actual podcast of someone that is involved with counting votes and studying, voter trends and everything. And he's going to talk about this too. So let me go ahead and share my screen so we can get started. But I'm starting to believe that Donald Trump and Elon are not enemies at all. But I think it's a performative thing they're doing in the media. Now, what the end goal is, I don't know. But I don't think they're the big enemies that people are claiming. All right. Okay, please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Thank you.
We have some news right now. Elon Musk is now claiming that Donald Trump is a liar and now saying that Donald Trump would not have won the 2024 election without Elon Musk's support. In his new tweet tirade, Elon Musk is now saying that he had never had the opportunity to review the big budget bill before it passed. He said, false. This bill was never shown to me even once and was passed in the dead of night so fast that almost no one in Congress could even read it. Musk then went on to suggest that Trump would not have won the 2024 election without Elon Musk's support, even though Trump himself had said in the Oval Office that he would have won Pennsylvania and therefore the 2024 election with or without Elon. Elon did not matter. So the relationship between Trump and Musk is really getting worse, and it's getting worse fast. And it doesn't look like we might be nearing a point of no return soon. So spread the word. I'll do a full breakdown on my Substack, linked in bio, so subscribe for free and follow along for all the news you need to know about. More to come soon.
Wait a freaking minute. Did Elon just admit to election interference? Without me, Trump would have lost the election. Dems would control the House and Republicans would be 51-49 in the Senate. How do you know that for a fact, Elon? What did you do, Elon Belon? And then he responds again, such ingratitude. Guys, I just go to my last video. I just posted that Elon and Trump are in this major back and forth on Twitter right now. But I think Elon's crashing out a lot harder because Trump basically said that he's disappointed in Elon, and he ends this by saying Elon has Trump derangement syndrome. And Elon is quote tweeting Trump's old tweets from 2013 talking about Republicans extending the debt ceiling being a bad thing, and he's like, wise word. But this is another level. Without me, Trump would have lost. Y'all, is today the day that the skeletons are coming out? I mean, I think their fingers are coming out of the closet a little bit. What do you think about this? Because I know what I think. Let me know in the comments. Be sure to follow me for more stuff like this, and I'll talk to you in a little bit. Okay, I love you. Bye.
This is quite honestly, Nathan, this is one of the most requested interviews over the last couple of months, with folks saying, you've got to hear Nathan out and hear what he has to say. So maybe what I'll do is I'll set up my understanding of some of the claims that have been made about the election, and then you'll explain to me what your claim is. Is that fair?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So Greg Palast put out a piece some time ago. I looked at the piece. The piece made a number of claims that I found to be a little too circumstantial for me to make a definitive statement about 2024. They included extrapolations of prior, for example, Black voter behavior in terms of the split between Democrats and Republicans, assumptions about changes to the number of registered voters, extrapolating from that in some cases with 8 or 10-year-old data to make claims about 2024. It didn't feel super solid to me. And so I came away from those claims sort of saying, listen, I'm open to hearing anything. This I don't find convincing. So let's now give, with that as the context, give us at the most basic level, the claim you're making, and then we will talk about the evidence.
Yeah, sure. And if I may, I'd love to throw a little bit of background at you, just for my work history in the ETA. So my personal background, I have a degree in cybersecurity and information systems. I was a 25 Bravo computer tech specialist in the Army, actually commissioned as a signal officer as well. So I do know a little bit about computers, computer systems, some data analysis. And on the civilian side, I worked with a company that provided real-time network monitoring for multiple entities like banks. So I've done a lot of data analysis. I've looked at network security.
Yep.
And what happened was right after the election, there were multiple red flags that brought the ETA together. So the ETA at this point, there's 3 executives, me, Lily, and Jive. Lily and Jive have different backgrounds in either statistics and finance or political science. So we all got together, and that's when we sat down and we said this. We said, there are some interesting things with the election. Let's do a little bit of investigation. Let's see what can we start looking at to determine if our elections are being run correctly, free, fair, safe, and secure. That was the concern, as we wanted to verify the vote, to validate. And so that is what we did. We started bringing in volunteers with various backgrounds in statistics. Some of them have PhDs in statistics. Some of them are auditors or computer scientists. And that's when we sat down and we said, okay, how can we look at elections, and how could we perhaps apply statistics to look at elections to flag any concerns? And at the time, we knew that there was audits in the elections. We reviewed those. And if you're familiar, audits, that's a standard practice in finance, engineering, public safety. So auditing elections shouldn't be that much of a concern. But immediately when we did start talking about this right after the election, the concern was, as you said, people wanted very credible, very well-established concerns. And the common pushback was election denial was on the rise. So just want to make that clear. This is not the election denial. This is election integrity and auditing. This is a standard practice. And because of that mindset, we said, okay, let's do this. If you can apply statistics to detect fraud in banking, if you can apply statistics to do safety and quality testing in engineering, why can't we use statistics to flag non-human or abnormal voting behavior that could mean vote manipulation? That's what we said. And then we discovered this is already a thing. It's happening outside the US already. There are already election fraud experts such as Roman Udot, Sergey Shvilkin, Peter Klimek et al., who've been applying election statistics to Russian elections, to elections in Afghanistan, Kenya, and Bolivia. And they have all begun to find credible concerns of election fraud. So we took their techniques, and the ETA has ran with those methods, and we've begun to analyze swing states and non-swing states for the 24 election, and then we begin to publish those reports. So that's the background. As you said, I'd love to kind of walk you through some of the things we do, some of the things we find, and then the big picture. So any questions?
Let's see if, so let's, in order to pick one thing, because we could spend hours on this, let's go to, is there, and then you walk me through the example if you have it. Is there a state that was reported as won by one candidate that your analysis leads you to believe that was wrongly reported, and in fact the will of the voters was that the other candidate should have been awarded that state?
Yes. We've published 2 different reports now, both for swing states, 3 in total, but 2 of them meet that criteria: Pennsylvania and North Carolina. If you're familiar with Pennsylvania, there's a lot of controversy around Pennsylvania, especially on election night. I think they had over 30 bomb threats and multiple machine failures across the state. So what we've done for Pennsylvania, and the report is on our website right now, electiontruthealliance.org, and we've analyzed the entire state of Pennsylvania, every county in the state. We've also analyzed 3 main, very strong Democratic counties and put those up in the report. So what our statistics is finding and what our statistics does. So for example, we like to use the work of Dr. Walter Mebane and Peter Klimek as examples. So I do have a visual for you. Now's probably a great time to reference it. So what we've done on the first slide for these visuals, this is a heat map. And as I said, this is an example of how we do statistical analysis of elections. This is a method developed by Peter Klimek et al. So this is a group of election fraud experts and statisticians. And they've said, let's look at Russian elections. Let's look at Ugandan elections. And they put out a paper. And on the right side of the screen, we reference their statistical analysis of those elections. So we see Russia in 2011, Russia in 2012. And we see a Uganda, which I don't know the exact date, but it's in their paper as one of their foundations. And so what a heat map does is we look at every precinct in a county. This data is public. You can go get it from the county's websites. You can get it from the state. So we took publicly available data and we developed this heat map on the left for you. And California is an example of what we argue is more of a normal and expected election. Per the work of Peter Klimek, they say a non-manipulated election should be more of a circle. There should be no noticeable shifts in precincts of high versus low turnout. And that's what we're measuring. So the x-axis is turnout. Turnout is just how many votes were cast compared to how many people could vote. And that's it. So if you're 50% turnout, half of your voters showed up and voted. And then the y-axis is the amount of votes each candidate got. We're just looking at one candidate for these heat maps, and that's Donald Trump, win candidate in a majority of the swing states, all the swing states.
So Nathan,
here
if I
in-
may here, just to make sure we're not missing anything, the idea here is by looking at voter turnout versus candidate performance, you're accounting for the size of the precinct. In other words, we're already adjusting for population density insofar as we're not looking at the number of people that voted. We're looking at the percentage of eligible voters in a precinct. So this is not about, oh, well, it makes sense because denser urban areas tend to lean one way. We've accounted for that by looking at voter turnout rather than number of votes.
Yes. And this is, as I said, based exactly on the work of Peter Klimek and other experts that have looked at other elections. So we're actually going to compare U.S. elections to some European and other elections.
Got it.
And I'll run you through just very quickly what is concerning and what would be potential vote manipulation on a heat map.
Please.
If you look at Russia on the right side of this, a heat map that begins to stretch up and to the right could be indication of vote manipulation. Specifically, it may be an effect of ballot stuffing. Whether it's physical ballot stuffing or digital ballot stuffing, we don't know. That's where you would go and investigate on the ground. But as we see in Russia, in both 2011 and 2012, they have key indicators that they are potentially manipulating the elections in Russia by stuffing. And you actually see some places in Russia in 2012 that are at 100% turnout. And that's in the top right of the little grid there for the heat map. So as you see, California, we're going to use California as a baseline here. This is Shasta County. This was won by Trump. So this is what's important. That county was won by Trump, but it looks statistically normal, looks like a circle.
Trump genuinely won that county is your belief?
Yes, yes. Statistically speaking, there are no red flags here. It looks very normal. And then, so we'll go to the third slide for you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, as you said, are we concerned that there was multiple states, a single state that could have had vote manipulation change the outcome of the election at the presidential level? So Pennsylvania, 24. This is every precinct in every county in Pennsylvania. This took a lot of work to pull all that data together, but we visualized it here for you on the left. And immediately we see a serious concern that instead of what we would expect in a free and fair election, which is a more circular distribution, we see a strong shift where in places of higher turnout, in precincts of higher turnout, independent of county. So we're looking at Philadelphia, we're looking at Allegheny County, we're looking at Erie County. These are some of the more blue counties in the state. Even in those counties, in precincts over 60% turnout, the Republican candidate for president begins to win in those precincts. They begin to get more votes consistently. And what's important here is, as most people would say, maybe there's some really strong pockets of Republican voters in some places. This effect is consistent across a majority of the precincts. This isn't just a handful. This is almost algorithmic in nature. And that's what our analysis is showing here. And the other half of it is as well, there's almost an artificial wall. And you can see it for Pennsylvania, where instead of that more circular round effect, we see a stretching around 85% turnout. So it almost seems like these precincts could have been, in this case, this could be vote manipulation stuffing. They could have been stuffed up to around 85%, 85%, and then any votes after that point deleted.
So if we are to assume the worst here, and then we'll get to the differential diagnosis in a moment, and I have some other questions. If we assume the worst, the technique would be maybe the voter turnout didn't really go as high as it looks like in some of these areas. It's like over 90%. I'm looking at the chart. Is it like 92, 93% in some of these counties? Is that right?
Yeah, in some of these counties and precincts.
So maybe instead of really having that level of turnout, the real level of turnout was lower, but there was manipulation, either physical or digital, as you say, ballot stuffing or through technological systems, which credited votes above and beyond the real votes to candidate Trump. Is that essentially the sort of like most dystopian interpretation of this?
I would say this. We don't truly know how much of this could be stuffing versus switching, but we do know the scale of impact. So we don't know exactly what the real turnout could have been, which was still expected to be very high. But we do know that switching, deleting votes, and stuffing votes could create this effect. And we are able to estimate the amount of votes that could have been impacted at the presidential race in Pennsylvania. And per our analysis and per the work of Dr. Walter Mebane, he's a PhD statistician professor at the University of, I'll have to double check which exact university it is.
Yeah.
I think it's Michigan. And so he's put up a paper as well. So he actually looked at Pennsylvania. So as you said, do we think this is enough to change the outcome of Pennsylvania for the 24 election? 120,000 or so, 121 or 22,000 votes is what Trump was winning by in Pennsylvania for the or for the presidential race. Our analysis says potentially 190,000 votes could be manipulated, stuffing, switching. And Dr. Mebane even supports in his model, his method even says up to maybe 210,000. So yes, if this is vote manipulation, if these effects from high turnout benefiting one candidate is because of some type of digital vote manipulation, this would be enough to change Pennsylvania. And we're seeing the same effect in North Carolina, which it would be enough as well. The margin is 184,000. We have over 190,000 flagged anomalous votes. And it could be enough to change the outcome in Nevada as well. And these are just the states we've published. We've been looking at other states that, other swing states that raise the same concerns statistically. We just haven't yet estimated the potential impact.
So as of right now, if indeed, let's assume it's true, Harris really won Pennsylvania, Harris really won North Carolina, Harris really won Nevada, Trump actually still has 270 in that scenario. But what you're saying is this is only what you've published and you believe there is more.
Yes. So the common pushback we get is everyone says every state runs their own election, every state uses different systems. What we've started to find as we do this analysis is what is the common trend between all of these swing states and all of these other states that we've not published yet. We are finding these concerns statistically. And it's very simple and very concerning. This is where my background with cybersecurity starts to jump in, is we did find that at least 70% of the US uses the top two voting systems. And these include the tabulation machines. And so this is a fact I want you to understand. If you are able to compromise these systems, these tabulation systems, in 2024, nearly 100% of votes were counted by tabulation machines at some step in the process, even the hand-marked paper ballots. And so that's very important, is because we're seeing in these swing states, they're all using these same systems. And we're starting to find in states that aren't swing states that do use these systems, the same effects.
And as of this moment, that leans more towards the technological manipulation rather than the physical ballot stuffing, right? I mean, because the physical ballot stuffing would not be as relevantly mediated by the same tabulators. The tabulators seem to point more to the technological manipulation.
Yes, the consistency, how aggressive and consistent this is across multiple precincts and counties, points to it being a system instead of people going and doing things, because it's too algorithmic. We've begun to now analyze, is there a consistent pattern? Is there an algorithm? Is there, a formula? And we're able to start seeing that there may be a formula in how these votes are being shifted around. And that'll be coming out as we go forward. Yeah, go ahead.
One of the questions I know my audience will have is, does the scenario Nathan is drawing up require individuals at either every county precinct, etc.? Or would this, and again, this is all, I'm not telling my audience this is what happened. I'm asking questions to try to figure out exactly what the claims are. Would this be something that theoretically could be pre-installed in some of these machines, such that the machines already know what to do and it doesn't require someone in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia, precinct 39 is pressing a button?
Y'all, I'm going to play a video of Trump's words. I'm going to play a video of Donald Trump's words after he won the election, because he gave a speech, and I want y'all, some of y'all might remember what he said, but I'm going to play it. It's only 25 seconds. So let me share my screen. Right, give me a one if you can see the screen. Thank you.
They can do it. And the U.S. can't do it except for him. And it's pretty amazing. But he did that. And then he journeyed to Pennsylvania, where he spent like a month and a half campaigning for me in Pennsylvania. And he's a popular guy, and he was very effective. And he knows those computers better than anybody, all those computers, those vote counting computers. And we ended up winning Pennsylvania like in a landslide. So it was pretty good. It was pretty good. So thank you to Elon and his sons.
Well, if you don't remember, Donald Trump pretty much got on the stage and admitted that they cheated. And you saw what he said. Oh, well, they know how to manipulate those numbers and all this. Do I think that Donald Trump cheated? Donald Trump is a criminal. Okay. Donald Trump is a criminal. And I think being that he is a billionaire and Elon, who was actually doing the manipulating for him, is a billionaire, who was going to stop him? Kamala don't have money like that. She can't come up against these men like that. But I think Kamala realized that something happened. But at the end of the day, they gave it to Donald Trump. Now, is there the possibility of cheating? But yeah, but I don't think he's the only one to cheat. If you remember when George W. Bush was running and all that stuff that went on between him and Al Gore over Florida, and at the time, Jeb Bush, George W. Bush's brother, was the governor, and it was all this big fallout over Florida. Y'all, yeah, I think they all cheat. I think to some degree, some of them might be legitimate wins, but when it comes down to certain ones of these white males, especially if they got a serious attitude of entitlement like Donald Trump, he felt like he was entitled to be president. Plus, I think Donald Trump feared going to jail, and he knows as long as he's a sitting president, nobody can physically put him in jail. So I think he did it for selfish reasons, but I wouldn't doubt if there was some cheating. Because I mean, he pretty much said it. If you go back and look at that whole speech, he said, "Yeah, we cheated." He was very open. And I think sometimes when Donald Trump makes these statements, some people maybe they don't think he's serious. I know he's serious. I know he is. But who's going to stop him? Everybody in Washington, D.C. act like they're scared of him. So nobody's going to stop him even if he did cheat. But it just goes to show you, when it comes down to leadership in America, America is just viewed very poorly in the world now. Donald Trump is not favored by many of the world leaders. In fact, they don't like Donald Trump. And if your president is not like, people are not going to feel you as a nation. And even when he won, I even heard other nations like Ireland saying that we can no longer look at the United States of America as the leaders in the world. Well, they're not. They're not. America is not a leader in the world. It used to be, but not anymore. But, look, we're talking about Edom at the end of the day. And what does it say? Edom is a wild man. So if Edom is a wild man, then cheating is nothing to him, right? Cheating is nothing to a wild man. So I'm not surprised, but it is a reflection on who and what America is. Donald Trump is the embodiment of what America is, a cesspool of demons. That's what it is. And that's what he represents. a cesspool of demons. Even if it was Kamala, it would still be a cesspool of demons. And we know they don't do anything for us, right or left. They don't do nothing for us. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. Thank you again. This is my final live stream for today. So, I do have a few things that I'm working on tonight that I will be lining up. Um, people were asking me about putting the shampoo up for sale, and I will. So, I just need time to set that all up, because I have to make sure I make enough shampoo to fulfill all the orders. But yes, I will put the shampoo on sale. Yes, I will. So, y'all, have a wonderful night, and I will see you tomorrow. Shalom, family.